not good enough. Don't you bring me down. I'm moving up, and you're over now. You gave me fire every time you came around. My feet are steady on the ground. You won't knock me down.
Welcome to The Way Back, our YouTube channel that offers insight and inspiration to help you reclaim your life from addiction and help you to find your way back. My sobriety partner Glenn is away this weekend, so he's not able to join us, but I've been so excited about this interview that I didn't want to put it off. Today I am joined by my good friend Ellen, who has been such a source of support and inspiration and encouragement for me on my journey over the last 8-9 months that I was on the Facebook recovery group that we met on. So I'm so pleased to have you here today, Ellen. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's fun to chat with you, Steph.
I always enjoy it. So I guess just to start with, if you don't mind sharing just a bit about your own journey, when in your life did you sort of decide that alcohol had become problematic and you decided you wanted to do something about it?
Well, it seems that my journey started getting rough when my kids moved away, and it was the loneliness of that. And my new hobby, Greg and I, my husband and I would go work out, and then we'd go to happy hours. And it seems like that, along with, your body changes as you get older and your metabolism. And I was in my early 50s. And so it seemed like that was the beginning of it not being as great, And so eventually, through, everyone's talked about this, where you try this diet and then you don't drink, and then this, and then you try this. And there's periods of time where I didn't drink. But I did eventually seek counseling due to the loss of just the loneliness I felt.
The empty nest syndrome, as they call it. Just
they do call it.
Yeah.
And, I realized that a lot of my emotional needs were met by being a mom. I really enjoyed the experience of parenting, and, so I started the counseling, and it was very helpful, and it brought up, of course, a lot of other things that I was kind of, needing to pay attention to that probably didn't even want to or didn't even see, So she helped me a lot, and it was really great to have the experience of wading through these things with somebody who has professional, experience. But over the years, because I had gone to her for, a number of years by this time, and doing much better and making a lot of progress, I started trying to explain to her some of the things that were happening that made me, like a disagreement with my spouse, and that kind of kept coming up. And I couldn't really remember the details of what exactly happened. And so many of our disagreements we were just had completely different stories about what happened. And the reason I went to her initially was just this huge battle I had with my spouse. And, I was screaming and very unhappy and this and that. So then that kind of became clear that I think I had a little problem. So then I got through my daughter's wedding, and then in February of last year, which was 2016, was the first day I gave up alcohol. And the first 3 months were hard. And I've over the years kind of had a few ins and outs with it, where we've had a long social evening and I chose to have one glass and this and that. But I'm getting better with that too. It's been a long time since I've done that. But either way, I have given up my emotional attack. That's what got me through emotionally, Steph.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when you were talking about when you were in counseling and not always being able to remember the details of a disagreement or an argument, but also do you think that the drinking fueled your emotions, maybe made you more upset or angry, or, did that fuel the the tension a bit?
For me, it did, because my husband is a very calm person, and if something upset me, I just couldn't deal with his calmness. So eventually, I would just get angry, right? Well, the alcohol didn't certainly help with that, So that, of course, became a problem. But then also, it seemed like there was no way for him to own up to his problems at all, because I was just angry, right?
Mhm.
So the problem would go away because the problem became my anger, So, yeah, I think alcohol can be a problem for someone like me in that area, for sure.
So can you describe what your drinking habits were like, specifically, like, were you daily drinking, kind of when you started drinking, like what was the pattern over time, and what did it get to towards the end?
Yeah, I was pretty much a wind down at night, when making dinner, and very much a social drinker. And I don't think for me it was necessarily the quantities. It was definitely the quantity at times, but it was just the every night. It became a part of my life. It became a part of me. And definitely I was cooking all the time and drinking and this and that and then socializing. So I just always had my wine. And then when I got nervous or upset about things, I would definitely get through a whole bottle.
Mm-hmm.
I used it as to medicate me.
Right.
And
So it was a habit.
I miss that sometimes,
Yeah.
but I can live life now without being medicated, and it's absolutely. I don't have the anxiety. I drank to get rid of anxiety and stress from work, and it was something that just changed. It used to be okay, and then it wasn't anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, anyone who's ever had a problem with alcohol can certainly relate to that. I could relate so much when you talk about the cooking. I mean, as you know, I was a professional cook for a while, and cooking was always so important to me. I loved cooking, and that was one of the things I loved about cooking, was pouring that glass of wine and enjoying that time. I used to say cooking is my yoga, because it was like my time. I was in my kitchen, I was doing my own thing, and I could flow and just do whatever. I don't often romanticize alcohol anymore. It really had gotten so bad for me, but I do think back to those times when I was just chilling in my kitchen with my wine, and yeah, I mean, it's not as though it doesn't work on some level, but the problem
Yeah,
is at some point it stops working.
that's a really good way to put it, because I remember we'd go work out, and I would go work out. And my husband goes to the same club. And so he would go there after work too. And so we'd join up afterwards. And then we'd go out for some drinks. But it's interesting how one drink, I'm a really fast at anything I do. My work's fast paced. My drinking was fast paced. So, it's my husband would go through this much beer, and I'm like, oh, I need a second glass. It was always the white wine that went down quick, that got into my bloodstream really quick. And, it's just like, whoa, I need another one. Will you drive? And so my poor husband always had to drive. And he was okay with that. But then he just wanted to get home so he could have another drink, right?
Yeah.
Well, I always thought, well, I'm done. Well, no. You walk in the house and you just keep going, So anyway, it's fine until there's a little flare up, or you wake up in the middle of the night because you're not sleeping well, and it just goes like that. And then if you have a big deep discussion, you don't really remember it very well. It's just it's just not very relational.
No.
And it seems like the problems I've had with alcohol, I would say my biggest bottoms were really relational. When I've hurt people I love very, very much, those are my bottoms. And it isn't like I got a DUI or anything like that. Probably lucked out, no doubt about it. I'm sure I've been in bars and have multiple glasses of wine and driven home. But I guess I just sort of lucked out. I don't think I did a lot of that, but it's pretty fuzzy.
Yeah. So
You know, I mean,
mhm.
to be perfectly honest, you know, I'm
Yeah.
sure I tried to eat something. I'm sure I tried not to do it,
Yeah.
but it did occur.
Yeah. But it
Yeah.
sounds like it's more for you. It was just the effect that drinking in general had on your relationships with people, with with your family. Tell me about your relationship with your children. What, as a drinker, and then since as well getting sober, like how has that changed?
Well, my son and daughter both moved away. My son moved away in college. And I would have to say, since he's been away so long, he might notice it the least.
Right.
I've had fewer bottoms with him, but I do remember he studied music. One of his majors in college was music, and I remember going out there and going to all these fabulous concerts, you know, and then kind of getting sleepy. And now, you know, and I remember once he said, "Mom, you slept through most of it." And I'm like, "No, I didn't. I just had my eyes shut," you know, because it usually involved a long flight and then
Yeah.
you go in and things like that. So I just remember he was cognizant of me really not being there sometimes, you know, and he would say things like that. Which I know seems small, but now I feel kind of like you do a lot of looking back stuff, you know? I mean, the years that you have your kids at home are pretty small.
Yeah.
When you're a part of their world, then it changes pretty quickly because they gain a lot of other people in their life, and they get married sometimes, and their jobs and everything. So you don't, you know, they launch themselves, which you're happy for them. But then you look back at the memories, and then, you know, some of them are cloudy, and they seem so, you know, they're definitely made a difference on my clarity in the memories.
Yeah.
But I would have to say, with my daughter, however, there were a few lows where once we were all out to eat, and I had been drinking pretty fast, and they had ordered a bottle of wine, my future son-in-law, my daughter, and my husband and I. And for some reason, you know how fast I drink. At one point, we were wrapping it up, and my husband took the tab, and I was trying to explain to him that he better leave a bigger tip, and I was kind of aggressive because I tend to get that way when I drink, and it embarrassed my daughter's boyfriend, and so he kind of left, and she scolded me, and she said, "Mom, you just embarrassed me in front of my boyfriend," and this kind of thing. And then also she was saying, "And where did all that wine go? How did we go through that bottle so quick?" And, you know, kind of shamed me, you know. And that was pretty embarrassed, you know, and that kind of thing, you know. There's definitely those kind of things that occurred. And now I think I might have shared with you that now that the kids are older and gone, this is really, my relationships have definitely gotten better, but it's really a gift to myself. I know those kind of things won't happen now. I know that I'll be present. I won't fall asleep. They'll have confidence that I'm there. And it's the little things, Steph, like when they get to be my age, and if things get hard for them and drinking might become a problem for them, and they'll look back and they'll think about their own mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that a lot now. I think, God, how did my mom do that? Because she had 5 kids, and I remember some of her healthier patterns. So, you know, you're always role modeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's very, very important.
Yeah.
And so, well, I enjoyed my wine all those years, and I think this group's made some really good statements. You know, you don't change the past, you move forward.
Yeah.
And you do. You can't change the past, but you can change how you choose to live in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think our relationship in the future will be really good.
Yeah.
You know, really safe and really good.
Yeah.
And so I feel wonderful about that.
And you can change to you can choose to change how you feel about the past as well. You know, it's the forgiveness. You know, you and I have talked many times about children, and I mean, there's always mom guilt, regardless of whether you've ever had a
Yeah.
problem with alcohol or not. You never feel like you've got it right. There's always, and then they grow up so fast, and you think, oh, I could have done this differently or that differently.
Yeah.
But we can all choose to feel differently, to forgive ourselves for not being perfect. And I think that it also kind of, there's this full circle moment of sort of forgiving your own mother and your own parents, for anything that they may have not done perfect that you think may have led you to being how you are. It's kind of that's sort of where I'm at right now, is realizing, just my mom wasn't perfect, my dad wasn't perfect, my kids aren't, I'm not perfect, and forgiveness.
Yeah, that's really true. And it's not until I quit drinking. I mean, when you're talking daily medicating,
Yeah.
You're not climbing out of anything ever, really. You're like, the first thing I did when I got home from work is pour a glass of wine.
Mhm.
I mean, usually I would ride my bike first or do something exercise wise so then I could earn my glasses of wine. No doubt about it. But anyway, the fact remains, I really wanted that glass of wine the minute I entered my household.
Yeah.
And when I quit drinking, it's so funny. It's pretty hard to quit drinking.
It's very
When
hard
it's
to
your
quit drinking.
emotional crutch. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a huge amount of respect for people in the middle of these cravings, and emotionally, for me, more than the cravings, I feel like I could fight it with something, but emotionally, that's a big void.
Yeah.
You have to, and I have, like I said, just took me a long time. I'm very open about this in my posts, to be comfortable at home.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me forever. I mean, I would go for long walks, go to the movie, go a tiny bit of shopping. I'm not much of a shopper, but usually a coffee shop so I could write a letter to someone. It took me, and then I would come home past sort of my normal drinking hours and then resume with, some fatigue issues, which were easy enough to deal with, and get ready for bed.
Yeah.
And so it's great feeling being comfortable at home and having home be my new sobriety zone. And it's really, I feel like that's been a big hurdle for me.
And what you talked about there is the real work of sobriety. I mean, I think it's really misunderstood recovery, because as you say, we medicate every day, and then to take that away, you suddenly are left with your feelings, you're left with your emotions, you're left to deal with everything you used to use alcohol to kind of deal with. Even if it was just kind of taking the edge off, you're left to deal with those things, and you have to learn what to do to fill that. And obviously the best way to do that is with healthy habits, going for a walk, going to the gym, exercising, reading, finding good books, having a hot bath. There's so many things you can do, especially in the early days, just to kind of fill that not even emptiness, the cravings, just getting past those difficult moments that you normally would just be pouring a glass of wine. But that's the real work involved in recovery, and I think that's, as I say, it's sometimes a bit misunderstood how much work we put into this. I want to go back, because you were saying about some of the situations that have happened when you were drinking, that some regrets you have, and do you feel as though during your drinking, in regards to your husband and your children and anyone in your life, that you lost trust? And if so, how have you tried to regain trust?
That's a good question. Lost trust. Are you talking about losing trust in myself and my behavior and everything?
Other people's trust in you. Like whether you would, was it sort of expected that if you were, going out to a restaurant or to a party, that you might have a few too many and act up? And, was there a period of time of sort of where they had to regain trust in you, that you really were you were changing your behavior, and it was, changing for the better? You weren't going to do that again.
I've never ever even thought of it. I like that. I do think that my husband and the kids do feel a lot more comfortable with me now. And I think that, it's kind of funny, because I have kids that live pretty far away, so they're not with me that much. So when they, maybe about 6 times a year, but definitely the trust is definitely back now.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's always a designated driver. And I think they appreciate me. And I mean, that's the wrong way. We've talked about how that's a wrong thing to appreciate, but they're very appreciative. And, that they could have a beer or go to a brewery and we can all sit around and visit, which doesn't really bother me at all for some reason. And I don't know that it did that much for a limited period of time, but it turns into an all-night thing. I've had some difficulty with that. But I think that our relationships, like on the phone, they know I'll remember. And, little things like when I say I'll do something, they used to just check on it or, call me out. And it's been much better in that area.
Yeah, it's interesting as I've actually, as bad as my drinking got, and my story, I actually have gotten a lot worse in areas of like being there for people when I'm supposed to be. Simple things like taking my kids somewhere they need to go. I mean, even just this week, I was having a video chat with someone, and my husband suddenly burst in, and he's like, "You're supposed to take our daughter to the eye doctor." I was like, "Oh," and I look over, and it's written down in my diary, and it's just like I'm so kind of focused right now on recovery and everything I've got going on that I'm just everything else has become. Not that it isn't important, but it's taken a back seat, and that's the next question I wanted to get to is the selfishness, as some would call it, or self-care that is so essential to recovering from addiction. So talk about that for yourself when you quit drinking, the things you had to do to take care of yourself and put yourself first if you were going to succeed at staying alcohol-free.
That is just, I think about that all the time. I feel like I've given up so many things that are also important for self-care. I mean, it is kind of a selfish approach to living, but maybe we should have been more selfish all along, And I have always been really concerned about people's broken relationships and families, and, you get so stuffed. I've noticed this trend with all of us alcoholics and that we're so stuffed with feelings. We have all, and how to fix it,
So sensitive.
And it's just, so in fact, we drink to just deal with all these feelings that we know are impossible to deal with. So in the recovery process, I've had to just plain make sure I don't feel so much, which means, like you're saying, you kind of forget to do what you're supposed to do. And it's been, I've had to just give myself, how there's a few things that we live by? For me, I've had to really realize that it's progress, not perfection.
Absolutely.
So that is so important for me to say. Like when I walk into work and work is really hard and I'm the only one that does my particular task at work and it's a little bit too much, then I'm like, okay, no, just progress. And then you're not going to overthink all these areas because that slows you down too much. And then that's how I'm trying to do at home too, because we lack our wonderful gift of medicating ourselves, which for someone like myself, there was a gift aspect to that, Steph. So now I've had to just learn to gradually pick pieces. And I don't know, I'm still working on it, obviously. It's only been a little over a year, but it is funny. What you said is so true. And but it's selfish. It is. I have to have my bath. I have to have my walk. Yes. We went out with friends last night, and I said to my husband, I know you usually like to, stay and have drinks and everything, but I'm still not feeling well. And I've already told them that, sure, we'll have dinner, but I won't last much longer than that. And he was a little put out, but I was like completely selfish. I'm like, absolutely, I cannot go past a certain time. And we did, and we came home and it was done, but you have to be selfish right now. I wonder how long this is going to last.
I know, exactly. It's
I'm
so
a
true.
little
It's so
confused
true.
about that.
Yeah, actually just last night myself, we had a friend over for dinner, and we don't do a lot of socializing, but my husband and our friend had a few beers, and that doesn't normally bother me. He doesn't usually drink around me, but when he does, it's usually just if we have someone over and they have a couple beers. But at one point, after we'd eaten, and I was kind of sat there on my phone, and he cracks open a beer and like pours it into a glass, kind of almost like right in front of me, and it
Yeah,
wasn't on
yeah.
purpose at all. He was just, chatting and I was just like watching this beer, glug glug into this glass, and I thought, I don't want to sit here anymore. And this is a really good friend who was with us, so it wasn't a problem that I was like, I'm just going to excuse myself now. I'm going to go upstairs and read a book. Like, no offense, thanks for dinner, because he actually brought food, and but I'm going to go
Oh,
now. And
now that's a really good example, because my husband kind of wanted to invite these friends in, and I was thinking this morning, well, maybe I should have said, do you guys want to come in and have a drink with Greg? Because Greg kind of looked at me, because I could tell he kind of wanted that. But you guys all be going to bed.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that might be a better approach instead of it being all about me.
Mhm.
But again, we're just working on this.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we were going to their house, that would be okay. I know where to go to bed at their house. I mean, they're kind of good friends that way, right?
Yeah.
But they also have a wine cellar, and I've all we've ever done with them is drink.
Yeah. That's
And
always tough.
so I'm learning. It's not. It isn't going to happen overnight.
No. Yeah, I wouldn't want to suggest that I mean, there are differences in men and women and in how we drink and why we drink and the recovery process and whatever. But I do think, especially for women our age, having, whether we have young children or children who are grown, and just having been through, raising a family it's,
Mhm.
there were responsibilities on us. I mean, everyone has responsibilities, men, women, but when you're a mom and a housewife or wife that works, whatever, you do often feel pulled in every direction. And what I said before about, I feel like I'm not as on the ball with responsibilities now as I used to be, is when I was drinking. Not only was I afraid that if I didn't do everything perfectly, I mean, I was like Martha Stewart. I mean, every meal was perfectly laid out. The laundry was always done. And now I don't do laundry anymore. I don't cook as much maybe because of the drinking, but I just don't do those things I used to do. And it used to be important to me to make sure everything was done and done perfectly. But when you'd said about that glass of wine being a treat, I mean, I think there is something too for women in particular, being pulled in every direction, being expected to be perfect at everything, and then you don't get much in return. And so it's like that glass of wine is just that. It's the long walk, it's the bath, it's the book, it's all the stuff you would be doing if you were being selfish and having self-care, but it's wrapped up in one quick little package of just getting, that bit of relief from the pressure and from the, feeling so kind of pulled in every direction. So I don't know. I think it can be tough for
I
women.
think that's a really good point. The part where men and women, I think, might drink for different reasons. Is it reasons, or they get different rewards from it?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I tend to agree with that. A lot of people suggest women drink because of loneliness. Yeah.
And then when it comes to recovery and the vital importance of being selfish and setting boundaries and saying, I have to take care of myself, I have to do this. We're not used to that because we're used to being there for everyone. And it's just such a kind of mom thing. If there's only a certain amount of food to go around, you're going to feed the kids and you'll go hungry. Like, that's just how we are. It's automatic. So to take care of yourself, to just, like, I'm going to go away and have a bath. I know that you want me and you need me, but I'm just going to go do my own thing. That's so hard for us because we've never done that. And that's something I have had to learn. It's been a really tough lesson for me, is just the selfishness in recovery. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I haven't really talked to anyone very much about this aspect, but on a Sunday afternoon when I'm trying to tackle some things around the house that are hard for me, like, okay, I got to pay the bills, or I should do, just something that might be hard for me to figure out, and I'm anxious, the anxiety. And that's actually when I used to start to drink early.
Yeah.
When I was trying to take on a whole bunch of tasks to get done by a certain time so that I would be done before the next day.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I tend to not even do those tasks now. I mean, Steph, they just don't get done. I can't handle it without alcohol quite yet. I'm still working on that, but it's like almost attention deficit. I can't explain it. Where the wine, if I took a drink of wine, and I probably should talk to my doctor about this because it probably is just ADD, but I could concentrate.
Yes.
I mean, it would just lower my level of so I could concentrate. My nerves were okay, and there's nothing to replace that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's as simple as, okay, I'm going to do something for 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to pick something that doesn't make me anxious, right? You know, progress, not perfection, right? And then just get it done and then just kind of be okay with it and just kind of continue to address that issue. But do you have that where you have so much anxiety over something that without the alcohol, I can't even do it yet?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I as I say, certainly like just the what seem like minor tasks around the house, I just can't, I can't, it sometimes becomes overwhelming to, and it's not like I have that much more. Well, I do have more on my plate. This is the thing. Recovery is that was another question I wanted to get to. Recovery is huge. You know, it's huge. I mean, I got sober. This is massive. And that was actually, that brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about is, do you feel like our families and our spouses in particular sort of don't have the respect isn't the word. Respect the process just of how big it is, recovery. Like I think that it sometimes is seen as, okay, you don't drink anymore, it's been 2 months or whatever, like, right, we can move on now. But no, wait a minute, like this is a lifetime habit that I'm still trying to find a new way to cope with anxiety, to cope with feelings about situations. It's not as simple as just not drinking anymore, being done with it. It's do you feel like that your family, spouse, people in your life have not taken it as seriously, or do you feel like you're getting the support for it being what it is?
No, actually, you know, I have always told you and others when we've had the phone conversations, it's a very lonely journey. I mean, you know, that's not something that has made my husband and I closer, which is not true for everyone, you know, and I accept that's my scenario. But you hear a lot of times people saying, well, I can't quit. We have this whole wine cellar downstairs, you know, type of thing. And that's what we do together. And that's our livelihood and this and that. And I get that. But if you really feel like you need to quit, like I did need to, and I also did it for health reasons, but it's your own deal, you know, and you might, I just turned to you guys. I would just listen and talk, and every morning I start my morning that way. And that's the one thing the counselor said when I first started going to her is, when do you check in with yourself? And tell me a little bit about your alone time. And, you know, so I definitely have some alone time at lunch. And sometimes that used to be able to be arranged around some of my talks with you guys, or in the morning. So basically the answer is my spousal relationship, how much he can support me. I certainly was a little disappointed, but it's really my choice. And he hasn't been able to. He can't even relate. He would never give up alcohol, you know, and that's his choice, you know. And sometimes that does interfere with our relationship, Steph, because I don't want our whole relationship to involve around him being all relaxed at night because he's had his couple of beers, right? Which is fine. I'm not holding that against him. And I'm the most tired. I want our relationship to be around when he's 100% sober and I'm not, and I'm sober.
Yeah.
And it's been hard to find when that might even be.
I can so relate to that because my husband and I, the only real quality time we ever spent together was after we got the kids in bed. We would sit down and watch TV, and we'd watch movies, or we'd watch TV programs that we downloaded, and that was when we drank. We drank together
Yeah.
and we hung out together. And obviously anyone who has, young children can certainly relate to that, there's
Yeah.
so much chaos from the time they come home from school. There's everything you've got to look at and sign this and that and put stuff on the fridge and, running around to activities. It's just crazy and chaotic until you get them to bed, and then you're like, you know,
Yeah.
but that was our time together, was just, but it was a drinking time. And I've been sober 7 months, but I was probably about a month and a half before that I, had joined the online group and was, working on my sobriety. But in all that time, it's probably been almost 9 months, I have not watched a TV program. I have not seen a movie. I haven't, because at night when the kids are in bed, I come upstairs to my room and I've got my cup of tea and I've got my books and the group and whatever, and that's what I do. And he opens his wine then, or has a whiskey or whatever, because he doesn't drink around me very much. So it's like, and I've talked to you about the issues that we're having. It's not an easy thing, recovery and relationships, but that I don't know who we are without the alcohol, because it was so central to our relationship for so many years. We met in a bar and we drank together. That was what we did. And so it's really hard, like you say, to find that place where you meet and you're both sober and you can relate to each other and have common interests. I mean, I don't think it's crucial to have common interests, but at least to be able to meet together and be in a common place of in mindset.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And I would say they're very supportive from the respect, for me to suggest, can they relate to our experiences? No. But supportive in other ways, they've lost their drinking partner,
Yes.
and they've had to make some pretty big adjustments in our personality changes and the fatigue that comes up and the amount of attention that we have to give this subject and how much talking I do about it. I mean, he kind of is done with the subject, but he's hung in there, and I know that he misses drinking with me.
Yeah.
I was probably a little more relaxed at times, and so
Yeah.
and I know he took me out for Mother's Day the other day, and we had a nice evening. We had a nice afternoon, but I know he really wanted me to have a drink, and he goes, "Do you think you could have a glass?" And I said, "No, I really don't want one, honey." He doesn't quite understand that I've reached this whole point in my life where I don't even want one. And I said, they have great coffee here. That's why I picked this restaurant. And, but he just kind of wanted me to have a glass of wine with him.
Yeah.
So in that respect, they're supportive,
Yes, absolutely.
he was perfectly acceptable with my answer too. But they've had to day in and day out change their life too.
Oh my gosh,
it wasn't their choice that we quit,
No.
But he probably doesn't miss me screaming at him.
No, certainly not. Yeah, I can relate to what you were saying so much, in that, like, my husband and I have been through that scenario a number of times over the years. I mean, obviously at the end, and he has been tremendously supportive. I wouldn't have actually gotten physically sober off of the alcohol without his help, as you know. I was so physically addicted to alcohol. I was drinking up to a bottle of vodka every night, and I was severely physically dependent. If I tried to quit cold turkey, I could have died. He actually, measured out a certain amount and weaned me off over a period of, it was almost 10 days or 10, 12 days, giving me less each day, and locked away the alcohol because I couldn't be trusted. So, I mean, he was definitely there for for me in that sense. But in the years previous, there were so many times when I said, like, my drinking's out of control, I want to quit, or I want to cut back, or whatever. And there was that support, the hug and the pat on the shoulder, and, okay, I support you. But then within a week, he was back at the liquor store buying my favorite booze, and we were just back in that dance. And it was, as long as I sort of kept it under control, or seemingly under control, he would just kind of look at it like, well, I guess she's okay now. And we would just carry on. And that's when, in the later years, when I actually started hiding alcohol, because the consumption, because of you become tolerance occurs, and I could drink so much more, and I needed so much more. So he didn't even see necessarily how much I was drinking, and yet even what he did see was such a large amount. But definitely for years there was that pull to kind of bring me back into. He wanted it all to go away. He wanted
Yeah.
me. He just wanted me to be able to drink.
That's exactly. They want it to just go away.
They want it to just go away. Yeah. And this, I've heard this come up so many times in the group, people talking about their partner after a certain amount of time saying, do you think you can just have one? Because like you say, they've lost their drinking buddy. And I don't know. It's such a tricky thing, getting sober
so
and keeping those relationships, whether it's friendships or your spouse. But bottom line is we have to take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. We do. And, I have this whole history. We could do a whole phone call on the history of alcoholism in some of our families, right? And so, Steph, I can't really say that these kind of things don't exist. See, I watched the destruction of so many relationships in my family, and it makes me sad because of alcohol, and I don't have the luxury of being able to say it's not alcohol.
Yeah.
Because I know that it is a very damaging thing to relationships.
Yeah.
And even my husband and I, which is, I think, spouses and drinking, seems to be a really big topic in these groups because it's a really tricky area. I couldn't agree more with the way you use the word tricky. Yeah. But, I do feel, however, like I'm taking a lot more responsibility with this relationship by not drinking than he is, because I see areas, he's human too, he drinks and he has this and that, and then he forgets, right? And so, but he never grew up with any situation in his immediate life or grandparents or anything where alcohol was destructive to his family. Right. So he doesn't have any of that fear or anger that I was kind of, what do I want to say? Maybe genetically disposed to. I hate to say it, but you grow up in a home where there's a lot of anger over a father that couldn't be there, or, there's just things, and alcoholism is rampant in our family. So he's pretty relaxed about drinking, and I get that, but I do guess that I do feel like there's an inequity in who's taken the responsibility, right, for the stronger relationship skills here.
Which I think is often the case with women and men anyway, that women are more...
Well, it is sort of there is a bit of an imbalance there. And I think that's what, and I love this group because the men say the same thing. Yeah. They really do. They're such great guys and the gals, and it's a hard area, and they say the same thing. I'm going to step up, and every day isn't easy, and I have a little bit of a hard time here and there, and my spouse isn't supportive, so while it is a female thing for you and I, the men have been great, haven't they?
Yeah.
They just say, oh yeah, my wife still drinks, and, they're like, it is just about owning it,
We have such a wonderful mix of people on our group and different perspectives and life experiences. It's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, we really do. Yeah. And I guess I just have to say, I can't pretend that there isn't some problems when I drink. So,
Yeah. And there are
I don't have that luxury, which I'm not thankful for my past in a lot of ways, but hey, I don't want it all to be for nothing, I mean, alcohol and drugs can really ruin a lot of people's lives, and I've seen it in my family. But that would be for another show, right, Steph?
Well, and just to say, coming out of addiction and being in recovery, obviously there are a load of challenges, personally and relationship-wise, and but it's also worth it. It's so worth it.
It is. I just, whenever I read a book now about the brain, I just picture my brain so much healthier,
Yeah.
and I always have to thank my dentist, because remember how I told you guys that I had all this dental work and my blood pressure was high,
Yeah.
and so drinking alone doesn't make your blood pressure go lower. However, it doesn't spike as much, right? So the night before my dental appointments, or 2 days before, I was just like, oh yeah, I can't drink. That whole thing, that you go through that, because I don't want to be embarrassed by my blood pressure, And so, anyway, it was just goofy, because I had all this dental work, so I was going all the time. And the first thing they did is take my blood pressure, And so it just became silly. It just became silly. All the stuff I was supposed to not drink for. Well, just don't drink,
Just don't drink. Yeah, get it.
Yeah, it was just funny. But I do have this vision of my brain being such a beautiful brain.
Yeah.
When I don't drink. It's just a funny vision I have.
No, but that's good. I mean, visualization is so important, and even a physical visualization like that of, imagining your body, on the inside and out, just being healthy again. People often talk about when someone gets sober, how their skin suddenly looks better and your eyes look better. But yeah, you can imagine on the inside, your brain and everything must have been just pickled in me. And,
me too. That's what I'm thinking too. Just every day, my body would wait for my medication,
exactly.
And not that I didn't love it, I did. But I was also going to say, when I was raising kids and they were at home and I would read to them at night, I remember my daughter it's funny, she is an English teacher now, but she just always loved books, and so I would try to read all these big chapter books, because it would give us time together, right? So she would shut her eyes and I would read, kind of like my gift to her. But all of us parents know it's our gift to ourselves, right? But I would get so sleepy from having drank all that wine, so I always think if I wouldn't have drank all that wine, I wouldn't have been so sleepy, and it would have been So I think of these people with the kids like you and, all of you guys who have the kids at home still. There's just, it's such a gift that you've given yourself in having, sobriety be a part of your life, because you probably don't think of those things, but it won't be long and they'll be out in the world, and you'll have so many more memories that are clear, and I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, well, I do feel as though, and thank you, but just because my kids are 9 and 11, they're not quite out, but they're growing. I mean, my oldest has gotten kind of past the snuggly, cuddly, wanting to, she's just a good night, I don't sing to her anymore. My youngest, still, I can cuddle up with her and sing a song to her at bedtime and read a book, but like I've almost gotten to the point of that's too late, and it's not too late, but I do cherish now every moment, and I'm trying to, I think recently trying to sort of mend those relationships. I was coming on a bit strong, and my kids were kind of like, taken aback by how I was like, right, let's do this together, and now I'm like, okay, I'm just like kind of letting it happen, but I do feel very grateful that they're still young, and I still have a chance now to be the mom I always wanted to be.
Yes. Yes, without having yourself be so out of it,
Exactly. So listen, we could just go on, and I hope that we could do this again sometime, because I feel like we're just touching, the tip of the iceberg with regard to talking about relationships. But I just want to ask a final question. What advice would you give to your younger self if you could kind of go back?
I think my advice to my younger self would be, when other people have relationship problems, it's not my problem. I always wanted to fix my mom and my sister. They had a big breaking up, and I always wanted to fix that, because she was kind of my second mom. And if I just could have had confidence, the confidence I have now, and the security of loving myself, I would give myself that advice. Just listen. Everyone else's problems are sad, but just listen and just remember they're not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the advice I would give. Yeah.
I love that. That's wonderful. Wow.
Yeah. You always want to take care of your loved ones, and I'm a very nurturing person, and it kind of backfires,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get to just live your life, you can get up in the morning and eat breakfast and, just live your life to the best you can. And
Yes.
people do have sadnesses and regrets and things like that. But I think in my family, they look at me as being a person who can maybe fix things. I think somehow or another I became this magic genie, and of course I can't, but I must have thought I could. So I would tell my younger self that find a counselor and don't even pretend you're the little fix-it machine,
No fixing other people, right? Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Ellen, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with me. I know that this discussion is going to help a lot of people. And
I hope so.
yeah,
Steph,
I'm
thanks
sure
for
it will.
all of your support. You've just been, the way you open yourself up, and I just always have loved your words. Oh, that might help somebody. You've like I would say something like on a telephone conversation when we've had over the years, and they'll say, oh, that would be helpful to someone maybe, and I think that's just my favorite part about you.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
And I also sometimes think that we should all just remember that drinking our problems away just creates more problems. So,
Yes.
it's just been a blessing having you in my life.
Oh, it's a blessing having you in my life too. Thank you so much. You're such a sweet, good friend, and I really am so blessed to have you in my life. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.